In the last lesson, I demonstrated how Python will throw exceptions when certain events occur. And in this lesson, we're going to see how to handle those events using something called a try except. Let me first show you the general form of the try except, and then we'll look at a couple of specific examples. We begin with the keyword try followed by a colon. Indented inside the try is our code to be executed. In other words, the code that might lead to an exception. Then, after all of that code is listed out, we have the except clause. Inside the except clause is code to run to handle exceptions. So however it is I need to fix the problem caused by the exception being thrown, I'm going to put that code right here. All right, so let's look at a couple of specific examples. We're going to call this program try.py. So let's try our divide by zero problem first. So we prompt the user to enter a numerator. Then we prompt the user to enter a denominator. Then we divide to get a quotient. And then we print the quotient. Then, if an exception is thrown, we might write print cannot divide by zero. Enter a new denominator. Then we get the denominator in from the user. There we go. And print the quotient. Let's save and run this program. So we'll do 12, and then we'll enter 0. And as soon as the 0 is entered and it tries to divide 12 by 0, an exception is thrown. It goes to our except clause. It prints the message cannot divide by 0, asks us to enter a new denominator. We enter 2, and we get the result. So that's how the try except works. Now let's try it again with our file example. So we'll comment out all this code. Come back up to the try. Prompt the user to enter the name of a file. Then we'll say name is equal to input. Then we'll say file is equal to open name to read. Then for the except, we'll say print cannot open file. We don't know why exactly. That doesn't really matter. And we'll prompt the user again with a little different prompt this time. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so let's save the file. Let's run it. Let's clear our screen. So blah.txt cannot open file. Enter the name of the file to open. I know I have a file called grades.txt, and it opens the file. So code that we think might throw an exception can be placed inside a try, and then code that we use to handle the exception is placed inside an except. And there's one more variation I want to talk about with this real quick, is that we can also specify specific types of exceptions. For example, for file type errors, those exceptions are thrown as IO errors. So we can say except IO error to handle that particular exception. For divide by zero errors, those are called zero division errors. So we can specify that in the except, and then it will handle just the zero division errors that are thrown in our code. So when you have a batch of code that could throw multiple exceptions, and you're aware of what those exceptions are, then you can have specific code to handle each exception. Or you can have a single except clause and handle all the exceptions at one time. In the chapter exercise, we'll look at this a little more closely. But now we're going to move on to the next lesson where we're going to talk about one more variation of try except, and that's called try except finally, where the finally clause is a set of statements that are executed when no other statements can be executed without throwing exceptions.